What's up, horror fans? It is clean shaven Danny from the Lacercast, and I'm here to review Chucky episode 4 of season 2 called Death on Denial. This episode came out Wednesday night. Pete and Mike from Pop Culture Man-Children, we got together to review the 101 scariest horror movie moments on Shudder. We counted down the top 10. So if you want to catch up on all 8 episodes and count down from 101 down to number 1 and argue and, tell us what you thought of the countdown, watch our videos on the channel, subscribe, and leave comments on those videos. I usually would have reviewed this episode of Chucky Wednesday night after we recorded that review of 101 Scariest Moments, but there was a special thing going on at the Alamo Drafthouse in Staten Island. They were playing Psycho, the original 1960 Psycho, so I took Charlotte to see it in the movie theater. And that movie actually aligns really well with everything that has to do with this series. That was part of their queer cinema presentation. It was hosted, virtually hosted by Peaches Christ, a drag queen, who talked about how important Psycho was to her and her blossoming as a queer person when she was younger. And this episode and this whole show is a celebration of queerness, with Don Mancini being the head. We spend time with Glen and Glenda, played by Lachlan Watson, who was one of the talking heads on Queer for Fear, another series on Shudder, which I covered all 4 episodes of, and you can check out my reviews on this channel. Death on Denial was directed by Don Mancini himself, written by Alex Delisle and Kim Garland, and this episode was bonkers. This episode is an outlier, a special, just absolute crazy episode. We spent the first 3 episodes of this season with our Chucky versus the kids plot, our main A plot, which features Jake and Devon and Lexy being blamed for the death of Jake's younger foster brother Gary, a 10-year-old boy who was blown up by a Chucky doll, and they are forced to go to Incarnate Lord, a Catholic-run institution, where they are constantly under a barrage of a variety of Chuckies which keep coming in the mail. The last episode dealt with all sorts of trauma, from Devon's trauma at being alone, having lost his mother, and him and Jake having to hide their relationship in this religious place, Lexy's drug addiction, and then we got this super buff Chucky, Rambo Chucky at the end. I was loving the kid storyline, the A storyline. This goes just all the way, kind of skipping over the B storyline. The B storyline being Tiffany in Jennifer Tilly's body and life, having, control over Nica, who is left in a, boxing Helena situation, in a wheelchair, no arms and legs, and basically being held captive and tortured by Tiffany / Jennifer Tilly. Well, this episode devolves incredibly quickly into, like I said, absolute sheer lunacy. Glen and Glenda show up, and they meet their mom. There's a body on the floor. It's their 18th birthday. They want presents. They want a party. And they invited a bunch of people over to Jennifer Tilly's house. And suddenly this episode becomes a holy shit, is that who I think it is episode, as Bound's Jennifer Tilly's supporting characters, supporting castmates from Bound, a movie that they have brought up countless times throughout this franchise. Gina Gershon, Joe Pantoliano, they both show up. Then, like, Meg Tilly, Jennifer Tilly's real life sister, Meg Tilly, shows up. You have Sutton Strack, who's a Real Housewives actor, a woman from the Real Housewives. She shows up, and to hide the fact that there's a dead body in the house, Jennifer Tilly says, "Oh, we're having a murder mystery party." And everybody gets into this murder mystery plot. This felt like Don Mancini doing a Wes Anderson episode of Chucky. It was just completely bonkers. And then we get Glen and Glenda sneaking around, trying to free Nica. Nica keeps flipping back and forth between Chucky, because part of Chucky's soul is in Nica's body. So she goes from being wheelchair-bound Nica to being wheelchair-bound possessed Chucky. It is just, you're watching this going, it's just absolutely insane. If you were a fan of Bride and Seed of Chucky, this is the episode for you. I think it's great that Don Mancini directed Seed of Chucky. That was his return to the director's chair, and from there, and because that movie was not received very well, he took the franchise in a different direction with Curse and Cult. The first 3 episodes were very Curse Cult. This one is a direct throwback to Seed, to the point where I think they were showing scenes and clips from Seed of Chucky. They were talking about Bride of Chucky. There's a scene where Meg Tilly and Jennifer Tilly are arguing with each other over their Academy Award nominations, and Meg Tilly says that Jennifer's jealous because she got her nomination 8 years earlier. Meg Tilly was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for a movie called Agnes of God in 1986. Jennifer Tilly was nominated for Bullets Over Broadway in 1994. We get this great line from Jennifer Tilly where she says, fucking Diane Wiest, who actually won the Oscar that year for the same movie. They were in the same movie. Lachlan Watson, fantastic. They were on the stage at New York Comic Con. So happy to be a part of this new show, playing Glen and Glenda. They also are in Sabrina, the Netflix Sabrina, and I think I mentioned it earlier, they're also a talking head on Queer for Fear. So I feel like I've been covering and I've been seeing not just horror throughout the month of October, but so much queer horror between Queer for Fear, the Chucky franchise, getting to see Psycho in the movie theater, having just watched the Queer for Fear episode where they talk about Anthony Perkins being a closeted gay actor and, having to play the role of Norman Bates. This episode was such a departure from the first 3 episodes of the season that I have to admit, even though it's directed by Don Mancini and even though it has all these cameos in it, it was a little jarring when I put the episode on a little while ago. It was a little jarring because I was so used to the kids' A-plot at Incarnate Lord, and I was really looking to see after that last episode to really continue with that story. I'm actually really happy. Next week's episode takes us back there, and we get to go back to Lexy and her drug problem, go back to Devon and Jake's relationship and having to be kind of closeted in this religious institution, and the Chuckies roaming around. Really excited to get back to those characters. This episode was pure lunacy, so much fun. Just love this series. Everything from season 1 to now. And it, much like Ash vs. Evil Dead, really solidified my pure, unadulterated love of the Evil Dead franchise, from the original trilogy to the Fede Alvarez film, which I consider to be one of the great remakes or requels, whatever you want to call it. The 3 seasons of Ash vs. Evil Dead, to me, were just perfect. I love that series so much, and it complemented the show, the movies, so perfectly. This show, and again, it makes perfect sense. It's Don Mancini. It's the singular voice from 1988 all the way to 2022. All of these movies, even the ones, if you're going to do a Chucky franchise ranking, which I think Charlotte and I did once before, the one that you're going to have on the bottom is still a fine, fun 90-minute horror movie. For most of the people who love the Chucky franchise, Child's Play 3 is usually the bottom of the list, or Seed of Chucky, to be honest, because it just kind of goes too far into the comedy. Those movies are still perfectly fine 90-minute slasher movies. Seed being a little more funny. The way that, to me, and this might be controversial, even though it's ridiculous and it's most people's least favorite, I have a soft spot for Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Even though, you know, Freddy was too funny in that movie. I'm ranting and raving, but I love this series, and I love how much it complements the movies. And now you have 7 movies and 2 seasons of TV with really nothing absolutely terrible. The way that there are terrible Halloween movies, and I love Halloween. There are terrible Friday the 13th movies. You know, there's bad Freddy movies. Even though I think they're fun, and I love Robert Englund, there's bad Freddy movies. I don't think there's a bad Child's Play movie. And from Child's Play to Chucky to this series, it's just a joy to watch the continuity and the characters. And, you know, like, they'll make a joke about Jennifer Tilly in Bound back in Seed of Chucky, and then all these years later, we have an episode where Jennifer Tilly, possessed by Tiffany, is having a murder mystery party with actual dead bodies, and who shows up? Gina Gershon and Joey Pants himself, Joe Pantoliano. And, you know, you're there, you're watching the cast of Bound, and it's just, you have to sit there and go, is this really happening? Am I really watching this? That's what the show does to me. It makes me feel pure joy and pure insanity. And I'm really tired, so I'm going to end this review. Please subscribe to our channel. I've already pimped out that we are doing, that we've covered all 8 episodes of Shudder's 101 Scariest Horror Movie Moments, and I've done all 4 episodes of Queer for Fear. But we also interviewed David Weiner, the director of In Search of Darkness 1 and 2, and the upcoming Part 3, which you have just a few more days until Halloween. You can back it at 80shorrordoc.com. You can watch Pete and my full interview with him. And there's so much more horror stuff coming, whether it's October or not. On Netflix, I just finished Mike Flanagan's The Midnight Club. I'm going to be doing a review of that. I'm just starting Guillermo del Toro's Cabinets of Curiosity. Pete and I might be watching Amazon Prime's The Periphery soon, or The Peripheral. I think it's The Peripheral. My wife and I are watching Interview with a Vampire on AMC. There's so much horror content, and I haven't even watched Werewolf by Night on Disney+, so I gotta get to that too. So this has been Danny from the Lassercast. Go watch Chucky on USA and SYFY, and I'll see you very soon.